People vanish without a trace, spirits speak in full sentences, and sometimes the scariest part isn't what you see, it's what you can't explain. The David Lang disappearance, a man who walked into thin air. One moment he was waving to a neighbor, the next he was simply gone. In 1880 on September 23rd, on a farm near Gallatin, Tennessee, David Lang was walking through his field in full view of his wife, children, and a visiting judge. Now the weather was clear, no trees nearby, no structures to, obstruct the view. He was mid-step and then simply just disappeared into thin air. His wife screamed, the children ran, the judge stood stunned. I mean, they all saw it. Two men, even on a buggy nearby, also witnessed this happen and ran over to the spot where he disappeared. Now, the initial thought from everyone was that he just simply fell into a hole, which, yeah, that was my initial thought also. Now, search teams combed the field for weeks. They dug trenches, they brought in dogs, not a single footprint beyond where he'd been last seen. No hole, no sinkhole, nothing, like no signs of struggle. The only thing left behind was silence and confusion. But then things got really weird. Months later, the grass where Lang vanished began to discolor in a perfect circle. It turned yellow, brittle, and wouldn't grow. Animals refused to step into it. Horses would shy away. Even birds avoided flying overhead. A year after his disappearance, his daughter stood in the spot where he disappeared and said she thought he heard him say something. His children actually claimed they could hear faint cries in David's voice echoing from the empty space where he vanished. It was as if he was trapped somewhere else, like caught in a place between places. Now, some researchers have connected the incident to theories of dimensional, rifts, spontaneous teleportation, or even time slips. Now, Charles Fort, the grandfather of paranormal research, cited it in his writings on unexplained disappearances. Skeptics tried to debunk it, but the reports and witness statements remain eerily consistent. Houska Castle, the fortress built to seal hell. You've heard of castles being built to keep enemies out, but this one, it was actually built to keep something in. Houska Castle, also known as the portal to hell, tucked into the dense Czech forest north of Prague, was constructed in the 13th century over a yawning black hole in the earth. Locals said it was bottomless, that demonic creatures crawled out of it, that people who got too close were dragged inside. So what did the king do? Well, he built a castle, not to live in, not for war, but as a lid, a seal, a trap to stop whatever was trying to escape from the depths below. No water source, no fortifications, no kitchen, no strategic value, literally just a chapel built directly on top of the hole. So get this, when the hole was first discovered, prisoners were offered pardons if they agreed to be lowered inside the hole. So they threw prisoners into the pit, again, offering them pardons if and only if they survived. I mean, obviously that makes sense, right? Well, most didn't. The ones who did survive came out screaming, aged overnight, faces twisted in fear, rambling about clawed beasts and shrieking voices. I mean, the first volunteer was said to have only lasted literally seconds before screaming to be pulled back out. And yeah, once they pulled him out, it's alleged that he was aged beyond recognition. Hair turned completely white. He was rambling about creatures with bat-like wings crawling up the walls. And what's creepier is that the castle's chapel is built directly, literally over that hole, almost like it's a seal. I mean, the windows there are all fake. They're just kind of painted to look like windows. Fast forward to World War II, the bad guys took over the castle, drawn by its occult reputation. They sealed off entire rooms, performed rituals, and reportedly used the site for brutal human experiments. To this day, no records exist of what they were doing, but locals say the screaming started again. Visitors do report sudden blackouts, disembodied growling. Paranormal teams say cameras fall, audio gets corrupted, and investigators have been scratched and gagged by unseen hands. I mean, this place is literally open to visitors today. Like, one of you, please go. Let us know how you make out. The Bell Witch, the spirit that spoke and hurt people. Now, this is America's greatest ghost story. Imagine a ghost so powerful it spoke in full sentences. So violent, it slapped and tormented a family and even confessed to execution. The Bell Witch haunting of the early 1800s is still one of the most terrifying and well-documented poltergeist cases in American history. It all started in a small cabin in Adams, Tennessee. John Bell and his family began experiencing knocks on the walls, strange voices whispering in the night, and chains dragging across the floors. Now, at first they thought it was an animal, right? And then the voices started to speak. The entity, soon known as the Bell Witch, called out names, it recited sermons, it mocked the family's prayers. It had intelligence, like personality, and a really brutal sense of humor, but it saved its worst torment for the Bell's daughter, Betsy. She was slapped, scratched, and even lifted by her hair. I mean, her body showed marks and her screams echoed into the woods. Words got out, of course, and then Andrew Jackson, a general at the time, and later the 7th US president actually, decided to see for himself. I mean, his wagon froze on the road, the horses wouldn't move, then a voice from nowhere said, "Let him come through, I've been waiting." Like, okay, ghosty, like, say less, but also what? Like, that night, Jackson's men were attacked by invisible forces. I mean, one of them had his firearm torn from his hands and thrown across the room. By morning, Jackson was gone. He later reportedly said, "I would rather fight the entire British army than spend another night with the Bell Witch." I mean, that's extreme. I just feel like that's so dramatic. But anyway, years later, John Bell was found passed away in his bed. A small vial of black liquid was discovered in the cupboard. No one knew what it was. When a drop was given to a cat, the cat passed away instantly. I mean, the witch claimed she had poisoned him. So the Bell Witch didn't fade away. The cave near the old Bell farm is actually still active, and investigators report seeing orbs, hearing laughter, and actually being physically touched by something they can't see. The Pollack twins, a haunting case of reincarnation. Now, 2 girls pass away, okay? 1 year later, their parents give birth to twins who seem to remember their sister's life in perfect details. Joanna and Jacqueline Pollack were unalived in a very tragic car accident in 1957 in Hexham, England. Now, their parents were shattered, of course, but in 1958, Florence and John Pollack welcomed twin girls again, Jennifer and Jillian. That's when things got really weird. From an early age, the twins began to talk about their passed on sisters. They asked for toys that belonged to Joanna and Jacqueline without actually being told the toys even existed. They remembered the names of classmates and locations in a town they never visited. Jillian once pointed at a school and said, "That's where I used to go." Jennifer had birthmarks identical to Jacqueline's scars. At 4 years old, the twins passed the crash site and started screaming. They clung to each other, crying. I mean, the car, it's coming to get us. Their parents were stunned. They hadn't spoken about the accident. They haven't even told them about their sisters, period. They had moved towns to avoid the trauma altogether. No one had told the girls anything. Even creepier, Jennifer would speak in Jacqueline's tone and handwriting. The girls would act out scenes from their sisters' lives, but by the age of 5, the memories began to fade slowly, as if the connection was slipping away. Now, Dr. Ian Stevenson, a really respected psychiatrist who studied over 2,000 reincarnation cases, investigated the twins in person. He concluded it was one of the most compelling cases he had ever seen. I mean, the twins had no psychiatric conditions, there was no coaching, and their knowledge could not be explained. I mean, the story remains one of the strongest pieces of reincarnation evidence to date. The Dyatlov Pass incident, a mystery buried in ice. 9 very seasoned hikers went into the Russian mountains. Now, what was found weeks later still haunts the world today. In 1959, a group of experienced Soviet hikers led by Igor Dyatlov trekked into the snowy wilderness of the mountains. Now, their goal was to reach Mount Odorin. But something went horribly wrong. When rescue teams finally found their campsite, the hiker's tent had been slashed open from the inside. Now, footprints led away barefoot in the snow into like sub-zero temperatures. Their bodies were scattered across the landscape, some frozen in poses of terror. But it wasn't just hypothermia. One hiker had a crushed skull, 2 had shattered ribs, injuries equivalent to a car crash, but no external wounds. One woman's tongue and eyes were missing. Their clothes contained strange burns and tested positive for radiation. I mean, even stranger, they had orange skin, white hair, and some of the hikers' watches had all stopped. But get this, like at the exact same time. For decades, theories have ranged from, infrasound like induced panic to secret Soviet weapons testing to avalanche cover-ups to alien abduction. But the Russian government's official ruling, well, a compelling natural force. No further explanation? Sure, Jan. But no natural force explains crushed bones without bruises or radiation on clothing, or why seasoned hikers would rip open their own tent in a blizzard and flee barefoot into the night. I mean, this one is the most studied and disturbing mysteries of the 20th century, and to this day, no one really knows what happened.
The Jones house was the home of the Jones family, who believed they lived with ghosts. And this all started on one evening in 1993 when the matriarch of the family, Denise, was preparing dinner and she heard her son Michael screaming like holy terror level. She went to his room and found him curled up, frightened, shaking, and well, screaming. He told her that he saw the face of a strange-looking man smiling at him, who touched his shoulder and then disappeared. Poor little one was just this many years old, and this was the beginning of something that would last his entire life. Shortly after the incident, the family was at Denise's parents' house when Michael began yelling again. He told Denise and her parents that a man in a picture on the wall was the same one he had seen in his room. This was Denise's grandfather, who had died 17 years earlier, and Michael had never met him. He'd also never seen a picture of him before. He soon felt better because he felt like his great-grandfather was watching over him. Then he claimed that evil spirits were in the house and that they wanted to take him to their side. So Denise brought in a paranormal investigator, John Zaffis, to investigate him and the house. And he's pretty sure that Michael's ghost sightings were genuine. Another ghost that Michael claimed to see was an evil spirit he called the Shadow Man, which was a darker apparition that looked like a shadow that Michael saw every day. Now, his family was like, okay, this is getting a little more dangerous. One night, his parents heard strange thumping noises, and they went up to his room and found his bed shaking violently. On another occasion, Denise saw a shadow of a 6-foot-tall something or another that walked across a wall, which was apparently the Shadow Man. Then Michael claimed that the spirits were physically tormenting him with some physical harm, scratching, and biting. John believed that the spirits were about to possess the son, so Denise was like, okay, whole family's moving, out we go. But it didn't end there. These spirits followed the family. Denise was like, okay, how about an exorcism? I'll call the bishop. They got lucky. Bishop was like, yep, this needs to happen. And during the exorcism, he saw this shadow man at the church. The bishop had Michael drink holy water, which isn't a method I've heard about before. And the family was like, okay, well, if it helps, it helps. Well, it didn't. 3 weeks later, here we go again. Michael underwent 4 more exorcisms. Now, he still sees spirits, but his family's like, hey, maybe one day this is gonna stop. Look, I know Ed Warren would have known just what to do in this situation and ended it for once and for all. Just saying. Alrighty folks, time to travel over to Ireland with this legend. Look, if we know anything about Ed Warren, he loved investigating the legends of ghostly ladies haunting places, and this one is a doozy. Let's see if I get it right. Dearg Due is an Irish word for a female demon that seduces men and drains them of their life source. Iconic. The name literally translates to red consumer of fluids. Oh, well, you get what I mean. An Irish lady who was famous across the land for her beauty and who fell in love with a local peasant against her father's disapproval is said to have been the subject of a tale that originated in Celtic culture. Now, arranged marriages weren't uncommon back then, so centuries ago in the area that is now Waterford, a young girl with beauty so astounding that men were absolutely smitten with her, and woman wanted to be her, was happily living day to day and had the love of a farm laborer. They made plans to marry and have descendants of their own. Granted, her dad, who wasn't a nice guy and cared nothing for love and innocence, was like, no, arranged marriage for you because I want to promise your hand to a wealthy and notoriously atrocious person in charge with a lot of power in exchange for riches and lands for, well, myself and for all of my remaining offspring. So the marriage was arranged, the date was set, and all the begging in the world from our poor bride-to-be was not enough to move the cold, empty heart of her father or her betrothed. So on the day of the wedding, everybody dressed in their finery, and the bride was a vision of beauty, dressed in red, gold, and we're all gonna party throughout the night. But one person sat away from them all, damning her father and vowing to seek revenge on those who had cost her her love and life. Turns out this new husband with all this power, he was a little bit harmful. Well, a lot of it harmful, and very controlling, more so than his new wife could have ever imagined. To him, this new wife was nothing but a trophy to be locked away for his pleasure only, savoring the knowledge that she was his and his alone. She was so depressed, I wonder why, so lonely with a complete absence of hope that she just wasted away. Not drinking, not eating, just existing, her life gone long before her body gave in. Her burial was a modest affair. Her husband had already taken another wife before she was cold body. And her family was too much obsessed with their wealth and their greed to give her a second thought. One man did grieve though, her lost love. He visited her grave every single day, telling her of his undying love and praying for her return to his arms. Sadly, his love was not the driving force for her resurrection. Revenge was the force that pulled her from her grave on the first anniversary of her death. Consumed with anger and the need for retribution, she climbed from her coffin and headed straight to her parents' home. As her father lay sleeping, she touched her lips to his and sucked the life out of him. But that wasn't enough. She called upon her callous husband, finding him surrounded by women, fulfilling his lustful desires, and oblivious to the dead bride, and she launched on him, sending everybody else screaming. She was so full of fury and fire that she not only drew every breath, but drained every ounce of red fluid from his twisted and cruel body. Scarlet liquid surging through her, she felt more alive than she had ever been before, and she had a hunger that could not be satisfied. So eager to satisfy this, the love who had wished her back to life was forgotten, and such was his good fortune, for he would have been another victim of her lust. Our corpse bride used her beauty to prey on young men, luring them to their demise with seduction, the promise of her body the reward. Instead, well, she sank her teeth into their exposed necks and drank their fluids to quench her thirst and desire, but it was never enough. The warm, red elixir of life gave her strength and immortality, and she hungered for her next feast. Her remains are buried in Waterford, in a place known as Strongbow's Tree. Her lustful yearning can only be satisfied on the day she died, so on the eve of her anniversary, locals gather and position rocks upon her grave so that she will not rise and take the elixir of the innocent. Sometimes the rocks are displaced, forgotten, or her desire is stronger than any stone could ever be, and she walks into the night, tempting folks to fall victim to her beauty and her lust. Look, I feel like Ed Warren could have absolutely put an end to this for once and for all, and probably should have visited this place before he passed, and acknowledged the legend. Do you mind if I cheat a little with the rest of today? Like, I found some cases that are definitely supernatural, but not necessarily hauntings, and I'm pretty sure Ed and Lorraine would have helped out greatly with these. Thanks, folks! So I'm a bit of an Unsolved Mysteries addict, and I immediately thought about the Up in Smoke episode from season 9 when the powers at me asked me to talk about Ed and Lorraine today. So this episode examined 3 cases of spontaneous human combustion, 2 of which ended in death, with the third being that of Kay Fletcher, a woman who says that one morning her back started emitting smoke that smelled like burned flesh, but she was unharmed. One expert said that SHC could be the result of internal electric currents causing a spark that ignites the body like a wick. Well, one skeptic was like, yeah, okay. Once again, Ed Warren would have had some answers. I'm no expert, but it sounds like demonic possession to me. Now, which demon? That I can't answer without knowing more. My knowledge isn't specific enough. But some demon out there had to be involved with this. I know this is a redundant statement to most, but throughout history there have been multiple paninis that have brought the entire world to a standstill. Well, we all know about the most recent one. It turns out that one of the least known ones is the sleeping sickness of the early 20th century. To be specific, between 1915 and 1926, around the same time the influenza thing ravaged the world, a sleeping disease claimed the lives of more than 500,000 people. Known scientifically as encephalitis lethargica, this disease left sufferers in a statue-like condition, unable to speak or move their bodies. In fact, some patients who survived it reportedly never gained full control of their motor functions ever again. Although the disease mysteriously just disappeared in 1927, scientists remain puzzled over its origin and cause, as well as how was this transmitted? I don't know, folks. Sounds pretty supernatural to me. Alrighty, we're ending today with another case I learned about from an Unsolved Mysteries episode. So 2 weeks after disappearing in 1989, Cindy James was found dead near an abandoned house with her arms and legs bound behind her back and a nylon stocking around her neck. An autopsy revealed that her actual cause of death was a not-so-fun substance situation, and the police ruled it a self-inflicted death, which would be bizarre enough on its own had James not reported being harassed and physically attacked by an unknown assailant for the last 7 years. She first received threatening notes and phone calls, discovered dead cats hanging in her garden, had her phone wires cut, her house was nearly burned down, and was attacked 5 times. Once in her home where she was impaled through the hand with a paring kitchen utensil, and another time when she was found battered and suffered from hypothermia in a ditch on the side of the road. So the police, who they never tested for prints, never thoroughly searched for evidence, they were like, you're making this up. Sure, because somebody's gonna go to those lengths to make up a story. A lot of that isn't even possible to self-inflict. So after her death, one doctor was like, oh, you know what? I think she's got multiple personalities, and one of the split Cindys killed the other. If I'm starting to sound angry, it's because I am, folks. She was tormented for 7 years and ended up dead. According to experts, this has always been a real puzzler, and it's like, yeah, you don't say. It's really hard to believe that she could have taken the substances and then also hogtied herself. Look, I think we can rule out an accident. As for the multiple personalities claim, well, it's a theory. I know Ozzy Caban, the private investigator who worked with her for years, was absolutely certain she was being stalked and then she was killed. Her family didn't think she was having any psychological issues. It's just hard to imagine somebody inflicting that kind of pain, where there's actually a weapon going through her hand. The big question is, who would keep this up for 7 years? Some folks really thought this girl was possessed, and look, I know Ed Warren would have absolutely proven them wrong in an instant and believed and advocated for this poor girl. He would have known this wasn't demonic possession or multiple personalities.
Number 5. D.B. Cooper. One of the most infamous disappearance cases in history, and I'm gonna be honest, probably my personal favorite unsolved mystery of all time. If you haven't heard the story of the real-life daredevil heister, Mr. D.B. Cooper, you're in for a treat and then some. Depending on your definition of success, you could argue D.B. Cooper might be the most successful criminal in history, since not only did he get off with quite an impressive take, but he got away with all his crimes and avoided capture, if he's still alive, that is. On November 24th, 1971, a man using an alias of Dan Cooper walked up to the ticket counter at Portland International and booked a one-way ticket to Seattle, claiming that he was on business. He was technically correct in that assessment. Once on board the plane, Cooper passed a note to a flight attendant, and he was not asking for an extra bag of peanuts and fluffing his pillow. No, he was just letting the attendant know that he had brought a bomb on board the flight and demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes. And if he caught a whiff of any funny business, he'd turn this plane into a national tragedy on the 6 o'clock news, see? So, you know, nothing unreasonable really. I make all those demands whenever I'm hangry, pretty normal stuff. So the plane landed in Seattle, as originally planned, and authorities were summoned to deliver the ransom money and parachutes to Cooper. The passengers were relieved and eventually let go, but the flight crew was stuck with their new boss, Mr. Cooper, who'd taken them hostage. Cooper seized the plane, planning a flight path to Mexico City, but midway through the flight, Cooper, who was a huge fan of the film Point Break and wanted to pay homage to it, jumped out of a plane with all of the money. D.B. Cooper jumping out of that plane with a suitcase full of money would be the last time anyone ever saw him. He jumped out of that plane and into the stuff of history book legends, the Hall of Fame of heisters. Move over, Payday crew, this guy's got you beat. Despite extensive searching, not a hair of D.B. Cooper ever turned up. Some speculate, rather bluntly, that perhaps he miscalculated the angle and splattered somewhere across the northwest and the heist wasn't as impressive as we thought, while others imagined that he got off easy, he's knocking back Mai Tais on a Hawaiian island, enjoying the spoils of his loot. But who was the guy to begin with? A career crook on one last job? Someone trying it out? Someone snapping? Several theories suggest he was ex-military, special forces, which would explain his proficiency. In fact, the leading hypothesis is that he was ex-military. We may never know who the real D.B. Cooper is, and that's fine. That's the way he'd want it. And if we don't know who he is, it makes it that much more fun for us. He could be any one of us. He could be you. He could be me. He could be... I'll stop talking there. And if you're looking for more scary videos and strange stories out there, we've got all of that and then some. If you can think it up, we've probably done a video or 2 on it. We've got quite the catalog. So click on through, hit subscribe, and please tickle that little bell and make sure you don't miss a single scream. But would you kindly do that at the end of this video? Because I got 4 more missing persons cases ready for you now. Number 4, the Mary Celeste. Our next mysterious case is a bit of an outlier, a little bit of a cheat. I know. It's not just one person going missing, it's an entire ship. How does that happen? December 1872, the captain of the Mary Celeste, one Benjamin Briggs, cast off to New York to travel to Italy for unknown reasons, but probably for the tomatoes. The ship was kept to a rather tight crew. A staff of 8, plus Briggs's wife and daughter, were enough to man the vessel. The voyage seemed like it went pretty well until another vessel, the Delgradia, came into contact with the Celeste and were chilled at what they'd found when they recovered the ship drifting aimlessly. As rescuers boarded the ship, they were greeted with a maritime mystery to forever haunt them. The ship seemed to be in perfect working order, no signs of damage or distress. Had it not been found freely floating, they'd assumed the ship was just built. Aside from a single lifeboat missing, the ship was in good condition, the holds stocked with food and water. The crew's personal belongings were scattered about. The table was set for a meal, as if the crew had been minutes away from breaking bread. So what happened? What reasonable captain would abandon a perfectly serviceable, well-stocked ship? Well, reasonable explanations were offered, theories of piracy or mutiny prevailing. Now, the ship being relatively untouched does call into question the notion of piracy, as I don't know how much you know about pirates, but they didn't tend to leave the rum behind if there is any. Any pirate captain worth his salt would have plundered that thing down to the floorboards. And there didn't appear to be any struggle at all, so no forceful evacuation, nobody kicked them off the ship. So with rationale out of the way, we've nowhere left to turn but blind and wild speculation. Theories of supernatural beings, cursed gold, vengeful spirits, sea monsters, Davy Jones. Take your pick of whatever nautical bedtime story you think could have overtaken the Mary Celeste. You know what? Let me know down below. I love pirate ghost stories more than anything. Perhaps it was a bit of sea madness? Cabin fever? Maybe it's whatever happened to those two guys in the lighthouse happened to them here? No matter how you slice it, the vanishing of the Mary Celeste is a head scratcher of a mystery. More lost souls to the darkness that lurks below the ocean's water. Wary yourselves against the whispers that echo the seas, for the spirits of the Mary Celeste may still be watching, eager to claim another. Number 3. Frederick Valentich. Our next mysterious case is Frederick Valentich, an Australian pilot, a well-trained aerial ace. He had 150 hours of manned flight experience and was permitted to fly alone, provided it was in good weather conditions. He also had a love of extraterrestrial life, a deep desire to find that unknown above. Well, Valentich might have got his wish. Tragically, it might have cost him his life. The year was 1978. Frederick Valentich was performing a 125 nautical mile training flight flying to a small landmass called Kings Island. While at 4,500 feet in the air, Valentich thought he had seen something with him. The Melbourne Flight Service insisted that there wasn't anything in the air with him, but Frederick radioed back and said that there was something on his tail. He claimed that he saw something glowing with 4 repeating bright lights and was rushing past him, and he described it as shiny, metallic, and chrome and looking like a small manned craft. Now, unsure what was happening, Valentich on radio to ground control told them that he was experiencing engine troubles inexplicably. Could this strange flying object be the source of these unexpected problems? Valentich complained out about whatever was following him to the Melbourne Flight Service, saying, "It's hovering and it's not an aircraft." Those would be the last words anyone ever heard from Frederick. Minutes after that last transmission, he went silent and the plane, or the mysterious craft, was never found. An intense search revealed nothing. No sign of the man. The only lead was a local farmer alleging that the day Frederick disappeared, he saw what looked like a civilian aircraft seemingly fused with what looked like a saucer. The farmer told authorities he was worried about being dismissed as a crackpot, so he didn't tell anyone what he saw that day. What do you think? Should he have checked his eyes better? Or was he perhaps the last person to see the remnant of Frederick Valentich before he was carried off into who knows what? Number 2. Michael Rockefeller. When Michael Rockefeller was born, he was born with a silver spoon to a lineage of millionaires in the late 1930s. His great-grandfather, one John Rockefeller, is one of the richest men to have ever lived. The Rockefellers had hoped that Michael would follow them in the family business. Michael, however, had other ideas and wanted to use his millions of dollars to goof off and take it easy, which is what most of us would, I think. Michael had wanderlust in his heart and a deep interest in anthropology, specifically focused on Nigerian, Mayan, and Aztec cultures. Michael's father sat on a board of a museum in New York where Michael would discover this passion, hoping to one day open a collection of indigenous art in New York. After some discussions with the Dutch Museum of Ethnology, terrible name, Michael had decided he would set out to the massive island off the coast of Australia, at the time known as Dutch New Guinea. In 1961, he set off to collect the art of the Asmat people who lived there. It would be a one-way trip. The Asmat people that he was going to study were very disconnected from the rest of the world. They had previously seen Dutch colonizers, but otherwise they weren't getting a ton of visitors. The Asmat believed that the land beyond their island was inhabited by spirits, and they saw the Euros and the Americans as supernatural beings that had come over from across the sea. Michael and his team were allowed to study the people, but were banned from purchasing or taking anything, which held a great deal of significance to the Asmat. Nonetheless, Michael was thrilled with everything he'd been finding and could not wait to open his exhibit. In November 1961, Michael was on a boat accompanied by other anthropologists when a sudden squall threw the boat off its course. 12 miles away from the shore, but Michael insisted he could swim for it, and he was never seen again. The Rockefellers would spend the next few months spending a small fortune trying to find Michael, but gave up after never uncovering anything. The case went cold for years, but officers believed that Michael hadn't been lost to the water, but was rather offered as part of a sacrifice. His head chopped off, his flesh eaten, his bones made into weaponry, you know. Fun stuff. An investigator, one Carl Hoffman, uncovered this while filming the Asmat people. He saw a group of men acting out a scene, miming the act of, removing someone's head from the rest of their neck and attacking them with spears. Now, we can't really find this footage, but through interpretation and translation was a stern warning to the other villagers that Hoffman reported. Pop your ears open and take a listen. Don't you tell this story to any other man. I hope you remember it, and you must keep this for us. I hope this is for you and you only. Don't talk to anyone, to other people, or another village. If people question you, don't answer. Don't talk to them because the story is only for you. If you tell it to them, you'll die. Or any other village because the story is only for us. I probably shouldn't have shared it just then. Now, maybe just scrub that. Number 1, Lars Mittank. Lars Mittank is a young German man who became infamous in 2014 when his disappearance captured the attention of the world. Last seen on airport security footage, he's been called the most famous missing person on YouTube. Wow, isn't that a lovely title? I'd put that right on my resume. In July 2014, Mittank was vacationing in Varna, Bulgaria, I've heard lovely things, with a group of friends. Apparently things were pretty unremarkable until an argument about football at a bar turned into a brawl. You see, Mittank was a Bremen man and he was getting into an argument with some nasty Bayern fans. I actually don't know nothing about German football. Clear that up in the comments. Mittank would suffer a ruptured eardrum and was told to stay on the ground, for flying could damage his ears even further. So Lars decided to stay in Varna just a little bit longer while the rest of the party would return back to Berlin. Now here's where things take a turn for the strange. CCTV footage from the airport shows Lars behaving strangely, for lack of a better word. Dropping his luggage, running in a sprint, hopping a fence, the kind of things you would do if you were running away from somebody. His final texts warned his mother to cancel his credit cards as he believed he was being pursued. This footage was the last time he was ever seen, as he vanished without a trace shortly thereafter. Both German and Bulgarian authorities launched investigations, but nobody found anything. Hospital records turned up nothing, and outside of a few disconnected sightings of alleged hitchhikers which could have matched descriptions, nothing was ever outright confirmed. So what happened? What happened? There are theories. Some speculate perhaps that the medication he was prescribed was causing a psychological breakdown, combined with the paranoia of being attacked and reeling from the attack earlier in the week. The doctor who prescribed that medication, though, noted he never even filed the prescription, and the doctor was perplexed and concerned with the seemingly causeless change of behavior.